good morning from my side. Let's continue with the, as Vasily said, with the practical side. I showed you yesterday a call text, and it's a short text. Most of the texts are relatively short. Now, are they easy to understand or not? So I'll give you one example now how to interpret the call text and how to really sort of make sense out of it. You can read these lines and say, fine, and now what do I do now? I mean, it gives me roughly the idea what to do. I hope I got all the main points. You're not quite sure. But what's the next step then? So I'll give you this example, and after that, either before or after the coffee break, I will give you, on the paper you've seen it outside, a different call text. And then it will be your task to do a similar exercise as I'm telling you and showing you now. So, identify adequate calls. That's the first thing you have to do if you have an idea. And second, then analyze the call text. So, it is from an idea to a proposal. In that phase. It's more on the first step, of course. Now, let us assume that firstly you have a clear idea of what you want to do in the Horizon 2020 in terms of the technology, the application, whatsoever. You have a concrete idea. And yesterday, through the discussions we had in the coffee break, some of you had ideas that, oh, I'm in this field, I want to do something here. Now, the question is, can you do it? Where can you find something? You also probably have an idea what type of action you're looking for. You want a research and innovation action, because you also want to include a bit of research, or you want to do an innovation action because you already have something, even if it's in the early stage or early phase. So, this is where you start. Now, I'll give you this example. And this is an imaginary example. Let's assume I'm a professor at a university department for software development for cloud applications. So, I'm working there, I'm good in my topic area, and now I have an idea which involves cloud computing. I want to develop a portable device for security clearance in a wide range of application scenarios usable worldwide and based, of course, on secure cloud servers, because that is my area. So my idea is something, to have a little device. I mean, it's not a smartphone, a little device, which I just put in my wallet. And wherever I go, this device links into some servers, sort of has my clearance, security clearance, and allows me then access to banks, airports, public administration, wherever there are security restrictions. So my idea is, once I buy this device, I register somewhere, I get the clearance, and I have a clearance on maybe different levels. So, but the standard clearance would allow me to pass through security restricted areas wherever I'm going. You know, but when you travel nowadays around the world, there's always security issues. You have to be checked. You have your passport. People want to know who you are, what you're doing. So this would ease things quite a lot. And there will be, of course, different security levels. When I have this device with my clearance and I travel, it's okay. Let's say I travel to US, I want to go to the Pentagon, it would tell me, no way. I mean, you don't have that clearance. You have a clearance for the normal life. Wouldn't that be nice? Now, is there a call for this? How do I find the call? I may have a pretty good idea of all the work programs in enabling technologies and in the societal challenges. Then I will know, it should be here. Is this a good way to do it? I said no. There are about a dozen work programs with more than 100 pages, so it is very unlikely that I'm familiar with something like 1,200 pages of work programs. So, no way. I may know one or two, but not everything. So this is not a good approach, and I'm certainly not sitting down and reading 1,200 pages just to find out if there's anything for my idea. So what I do, I use the Horizon 2020 call pages, the participant portal, you've seen the link several times, and I search. There is a pre-text search, and maybe I use keywords like security, access, cloud, whatever. Now, how do I do this? I go to this participant portal, you've seen this link several times, and there you find one of the links here is called funding opportunities. So, if I go on that one, I find the next one, calls. I'm interested in calls. I'm not interested in background documents. So I go on the call page. And on the call page, I showed this page yesterday to you, I've got all the work programs here. Fine. So this is not of any help because I don't know which one to select. So there is also a search topic page. This is the right one. So I go on the search topic page, and there is a free text search. And this is exactly what I want. So I go on that page, I type in my 3 keywords, hoping they give me some results. Security, access, and cloud. And on the filter here, I said, I only want Horizon 2020 topics. I could also ask for FP7 reference documents. I'm not interested in that. General reference of Horizon 2020, neither that. I want the core topics. And then I get a result of 21 links here, which is much better, of course, than reading 1,200 pages. So I go through them. Some of them, I just glance at them and say, this is completely wrong. This first one, this is the problem of the search page. This is not a call text. It's no reference to what I want. But I get 20. So but that's not too difficult to go through. But I find out that the majority of these findings do not match the idea. So I need maybe a different search. Maybe I do just only access control. I have to play around a bit. I mean, you're used to using search engines, so you have to play around with the keywords. And with some patience and much less effort than going through all the work programs, I find a number of interesting calls. But the best one I can find here is not in ICT. I get about 5 or 6 ICT calls, which I would have assumed, because my idea is an ICT idea. There are several calls, at least in FP7, that are related to cloud computing, that are related to security, but they're all in the ICT program of the enabling technologies. None of them talks about a real my device of access control. There are software development for distributed cloud computing, there's whatever you can think of. Nothing of that matches my idea. So, but I find, after some search, the access control. And this is not in ICT, it's one of the societal challenges for security. And then I say, oh yeah, okay, it should have been, and I should have looked at societal challenges in the first place, because what I have in mind is an application. I don't want to develop a new technology. The technologies that my device should encompass are technologies that are more or less existing. So I'm not dealing with technologies, but applications. And I find this is for innovation actions. You say, fine, okay, no more research, innovation. But most, I assume, remember, I'm the cloud computing software guy. So I assume that all the rest that is needed is to some extent existing, but would not require some sort of basic research. And I also see the funding should be between 3 and 8 million. So I said, okay, this is not going to be a small project. 8 million means a big one. Fine. Now, the next steps are now. I read and analyze the core text. I try to break it down into the main elements, if I can find and identify them. And then I group these elements into what I say work packages. It's still at a very early phase, but I have to find some grouping. I find lots of interesting keywords there. How do I group them in order to get a picture of what a proposal or a project may look like? It's still at a very early stage. And then, because what I'm interested in to identify the profiles of the other partners that I will need in my project. I'm a software person. I want to develop a device, so this requires hardware development. I cannot do it, so it's obvious that I need different partners. Also, I want this device tested somewhere in some environment, so I need some services. Who's doing the security clearance? How can I log into worldwide different services? So there are lots of aspects here which I cannot cover. So, and then I read the scope. And this is the full text of the scope. As I told you yesterday, the texts are short. There are some exceptions, but in general they are short. So, now I read this text here, and we do this now together, to just understand. And they said that the focus is on the development and testing of usable, economic and privacy-preserving access control platforms, based on the use of biometrics, smart cards or other devices. Now, one idea I already had vaguely in mind. If I develop a little device, how does it know that it's me using it? If I lose it and somebody else picks it up, would he get my clearance? This would never work. So I have to make sure that this device is really linked to me. Well, my idea is have a little camera in the device. The camera reads the iris of my eye and then knows, okay, it's you. If somebody else uses it, it says, sorry, it's not you that I have the clearance for. So, biometrics. This is exactly what I have in mind. How to do it, I don't know, because I'm software. The solutions are to be installed and tested in the broadband network, giving access to smart services running over the networks with state-of-the-art security, avoiding single points of failure. I say yes, of course. I mean, it's obvious, isn't it? This is what I want. Proposed work should include the management of access rights, in particular for the service providers. Again, something which is very obvious. Ensure the security and privacy of the databases. Obvious. Facilitate timely breach notification and remediation to the user and reduce insider threat. These are all the things that you have in secure applications and secure development. Again, it's nothing exciting, nothing where I say, oh my god, no. Proposed solution should have a guaranteed interoperability and portability between systems and devices. So again, yes, if I want my device to work in my country, if I travel to another country, it should work there. There's whatever systems I will link in, of course I need to have interoperability. Sparing the user to have to install a platform, service or country-specific technology. Exactly. When I travel from Germany to France, I don't want to sort of first download some new software because now I'm in France. I don't want this. And then it says finally, proposed work could assist the objective of implementing a secure information sharing network. To be honest, I'm not quite sure what this means. Could assist the objective of implementing. This is very vague. What do they mean by it? So, but anyway, I think, yeah, this matches my idea. It's a simple text. I'm not quite sure if it really helps me, but I'll find out. The next thing I do, I read the expected impact. I told you yesterday that each call has a general description of the problem area. I skipped this one, the scope, describing specifically what is expected in the proposal. And then the third item is the expected impact. And you have to read the expected impact and try to understand. So, I read the expected impact. Actions supported under this objective will deliver secure but user-friendly access to IT systems, services, infrastructure, resulting in the consumerization of devices or access control. It's the first time I see this word consumerization. This really means application on the market. In the scope, it didn't say anything about this. There was this vague sentence with could assist the objective of implementing something. Here it says this should result in consumerization. So the output, the end of my project, should be a clear focus on the market. The level of security of online services and critical infrastructures protected by these access systems should be demonstrably higher than the state-of-the-art approach. Oops, because in the scope it said state-of-the-art security. No. The impact clarifies this a bit. So the level of security should be higher than state-of-the-art. Which also means I cannot use what I as a software developer say for secure cloud services, what I have already developed. This is state-of-the-art what I have. This asks for more. So, an important aspect. The proposed solutions are expected to support the creation of commercial services making use of electronic identification and authentication. So, here now is again, this vague sentence I saw in the scope, the last sentence, could assist the implementation, is now clear. The proposed solutions are expected to support the creation of commercial services. So this is something that I now really have to have in my mind. It's not just developing this little device. You say, fine, it's running, I can test it in my lab, or we have a small use case here. No, this is not enough. I have to have the next step of support the creation of commercial services. Now, What does this mean? So what I do, first thing, in the expected impact, I highlight those phrases that I think are really important and have an impact on the way I design the project. So, resulting in consumerization, like support the creation of commercial services. This is very clear. It really focuses on the marketing aspect of it. And as I already said, this higher than state-of-the-art approach. This is something that I have to keep in mind because I didn't find it in the scope. Now I go back to the scope and I do the same. And this is the exercise you have to do later on. First step is I highlight those phrases where I think these have a direct impact on the structuring of my proposal. And I do this even if I'm not intending to write the proposal. I'm intending to contribute to it, but I don't want to coordinate this because I'm only dealing with cloud services. Still, I believe the idea is a good idea. So I will need to find other partners, and one of those should say, fine, I'll do the coordination of it. But which partners do I have to look for? This is the first question. Second question is, where do I look for them? There's no point in saying, where can I find partners without knowing which profile of the partners I'm looking for? I have to know exactly what I'm looking for, and then I can start the search. So, this is why I first highlight the main points here. And again, it says here, development and testing. Fine, this is important, I have to keep this in mind. I have to develop some hardware, and I have to test it. Access control platforms. Okay, I have to think about more what they mean by platforms. So I was just thinking of this little device, but the more I think about it, this little device can only work if there are sort of not only services around where it can link into, but probably some type of platform where I can link into. Something I have to keep in mind. I don't know yet. Based on the use of biometric smart cards or other devices, biometrics, already said, this is what I cover in my idea. The solutions are to be installed and tested in the broadband network. Now, what do they mean by broadband network? Is it the network in my university? No. How do I test this device? Broadband network means, specifically if you look at the next one, access to smart services, there should be some service provider, like a telephone company. You go to Orange, you go to Mobile, whatever. They are running these networks. So those are the ones I can link into. There aren't any other. Except, of course, the local ones. But I'm not talking about the local network in my university. It has to be one. So it means I have to somehow get a service provider in mobile telephones involved in the project. So then I have to do some work on the management of access rights, in particular for the service provider. Okay, whoever runs this system in the end, the clearance system, they have to manage their access rights. I have to do something for it. I think this is pretty obvious. Ensure security and privacy of the databases is also obvious, but it's an important point. The timely breach of notification is also important within the context of secure applications. This is fine. Then, the proposed solution has to guarantee interoperability and portability between systems and devices. Right. This, in a sense, is obvious, but what does it mean for my project development? How do I guarantee interoperability and portability? Let's say I have Mobile as a partner. How can I test interoperability? Well, I can't. I can only test if it's running with Mobile. Maybe I should get Vodafone Europe involved. And if it runs here, and it runs a Vodafone Europe, I can say, well, look, it's interoperable. It runs on two very different networks in different locations. They may have different systems, I don't know yet. So, but then I can say, I can guarantee, because I can only guarantee if I test it in the project and demonstrate in the project that it does, between systems and services, without installing, of course, new software. And then this last sentence is now clear. The implementing a secure information sharing network. This really is going into the business side, or starting to do it. Fine, now I have various highlighted things in the impacts and the scope. Now what I need is to find some groupings. I still don't know what, I have vague ideas what partners I need, but it's not clear enough. So what do? I try to say which of these elements belong together, which can I group into a work package. For example, the first one is an obvious one. There has to be some work package on device development. This is hardware in the end. I cannot do it, but somebody has to develop the hardware. A small thing. Then, of course, there will be quite a bit of work on testing of smart services. Whoever partner I get in, but there has to be a lot of testing. Not at the beginning, but when the project is sufficiently mature. And this has nothing to do with the device development, it is an activity in itself. In the same way, the access right management is an activity in itself. The access right management has nothing to do with biometrics. Biometrics development, hardware development is one thing. So you have to keep them separate. They are of course interlinked, but it is a separate activity. Likewise, secure cloud databases. I mean, you can talk about access right management in environments that are not cloud-based, but this one is cloud-based, it should be. So, secure cloud databases. The next one, I already said this, interoperability. Interoperability is something that is again of a specific focus which is different to the others, and it would require quite a substantial amount of work. So maybe it's also a good idea to put that into one work package. And finally, of course, when it talks about information sharing network, consumerization, and so on, I need to develop business plans. So now I have some grouping. So my ideas are becoming clearer. I begin to structure the ideas. In the end, it may look different.
Excuse me, for the last one, may I put it under the concept of cryptography rather than business plan?
No, remember the scope, the expected impact. It says the proposed solution are expected to support the creation of commercial services. Commercial. I have to get my thing on the market. How do I get my little device? Let's say everything works nicely. In which way ever, I don't know yet. But then, I have to get it on the market. This is commercial services. There's nothing to do with software, hardware. This is the commercial side. This is what is asked for, because it's an innovation action. So, I, of course, as a university professor that I'm assuming I am, I cannot do this. So, I need some activity that is really, towards the end of the project, of course, focusing on the business plan. And then say, okay, this is business plan, this is how we're going to market it, and then, if that is convincing, fine. And I have to put, this is also important, I have to put something about the business plan already now in the proposal. I still don't know what the final sort of consumerization will look like. But of course, I have to discuss with my partners, if I find them, say, okay, how could a business model of this device look like? Where do we sell it? How do we sell it? In which countries do we start selling it? Is there a market? I mean, that's the first question. It's a nice idea from the technical or scientific point of view, this device, but is there really a market for it? I don't know, I assume there is. Maybe there isn't. But this is what I have to make very clear in the proposal already. The proposal on the one side will describe the technologies, the hardware, the software development, but then it also has to say, look, if this all works, there is a clear market for it, and you have to justify it. Okay, you can only assume. You don't know yet, but you have to have convincing arguments that there is a sufficiently large market in order to justify the development costs and later on the production and so on. It is an innovation action. This is not a research and innovation action. And this is the important thing. This is the main difference to FP7. And as Vasily said, many people who applied for Horizon 2020 in the beginning did probably not follow this. They were all still in the mindset of FP7. In FP7, this did not exist. This is the difference. So, as I said, once I find partners, once I go into detail, these work packages may change and may come up with a different structure. But that's not the main point. The main point of this exercise is that with this short scope, and you see, you won't find anything else in the core text. This is the full text of it, nothing more. I have now a structure. I have a first structure, which may change. And this helps me, now in the next step, I write down my work packages, and I say, okay, what type of partners do I need? Well, for the device development, I need a partner who is good in hardware and specifically in microsystems. So I need a microsystem developer that is able to build a little device with all these functionality inside. Testing of smart service. I already said I need a service provider. I need a service provider that is willing, that's interested. Say, okay, if you come up with something nice, we can test it. And Mobile may say, okay, we can test it in some areas. I mean, not the complete network, but yes, we find this interesting. Fine. Access right management. I need somebody who's good in secure software development, secure class-based databases. I need somebody software development of clouds for clouds. This is actually my field. I'm the university professor for cloud computing. So I said, this is really my specialty. Maybe this one also. I don't know, but this one clearly. So this is my role. Interoperability. It's nice to have, as I said, one service provider. I need more. And ideally, of course, in different countries. Then, in order to really demonstrate interoperability, I need different countries. I need different countries anyway. So I have to make sure that maybe 2 or 3 service providers, keep in mind 8 million is the upper limit of the budget. This is a lot. 3 service providers. Maybe one in Egypt, one in Germany, and one in Portugal, wherever. It doesn't really matter. Or you take different ones. Vodafone is across Europe. So okay, you take Orange, Vodafone, Mobile. 3 providers, which are different in different countries. If they're involved and they're all willing to test it and it runs on all of 3, then it says, okay, it is interoperable. And then I need who's doing the marketing later on? Who's going to provide the services, the hardware? Is it Vodafone and Mobile? Probably not. They provide the overall, let's say, infrastructure. I need probably some IT solution provider. I'm not clear yet, but this is something I need. Somebody who is in the business or who wants to expand his business into this field and who is able to write a business plan and who is also able to give me that information right now for the proposals. So here I have now at least a good overview of what I'm looking for. But by just reading this half page of the scope of the cortex, you don't. You see, it reads nicely. Fine. It's easy. Sometimes, most of the times, it looks easy to read. Like this one, you just read it. But you have to go into much more details to find out where are the key elements. Now, with this one now, I really can go and look for partners. So this is the important message. The other important message is, you see, this one, software development of clouds. This is my role because I'm in this example, the professor for cloud computing. I have my people maybe in the university. None of the others, hardware, service provider, IT solution provider, is something I can do. This is completely out of my scope. I don't want to do it. I cannot do it. But it gives you a very good idea how to set up a consortium with different skills, the complementary skills, and whatever you do, whatever idea you have for Horizon 2020, you will always be only one element in a consortium. You can never be, even if it's, let's say it would be allowed, but the scopes of these cores are never in such a way that one organization, university or whoever, can do it. The scope is far too wide. So you always need different partners with different skills that are complementary. And if you have the right partners here, you can do it. That is the main point here. Now, let's do an exercise. And do you all have the paper, or shall we distribute it? There's outside the paper. You should get it, or you can bring it. And this is a call, Global Drivers of Food Security. This is a call, small farms for this year, so it's an up-to-date one. When's coffee break? At 11. Okay, what I suggest, we are coming close to the coffee break. Get this, if you don't have it already, get this text, start reading, and then we have the coffee break, and I'll tell you what we have to do. So this is a call, Small Farms for Global Markets, the role of small and family farms in food and nutrition security. This is a specific challenge, the general context, contribution of small family farms, and in particular smallholder farms, to food nutrition security has been gained global attention both in Europe and the context, blah blah blah. Now, this is the core text, and this is the text. You may be surprised, because we said this is an ICT focus today. Now I'm giving you something from the food sector, and probably none of you is a specialist in the food sector, neither am I. Why do I do this? Because my claim is that with a bit of common sense you can analyze most of the cortex. There are some very specific ones. I mean, if I look at some of the health ones, I simply don't understand the words because I'm not an health expert. But this one just requires a bit of common sense. And I deliberately choose a subject where you're probably not an expert in. And if you do this exercise now, you'll find out it's not that difficult. It requires a bit of reading, a bit of thinking. What you then should do is, again, highlight what you think are the most important phrases and terms here. And then say, once you've done that, to say, okay, is there an obvious way of grouping them? Of course, the question, how would I address what is written here and on a global basis? But then how can I find important key elements here and structure them? So you would again come up with 4 or 5 different work packages where you think, what, these things belong together, the other things belong together, they are a bit separate, like I did in my example. And if you did do this, and I've done this several times in these debates, it is quite surprising how easy it is. What many people fail to do, they fail to do exactly this first step of the analysis.
Oh, no, I'm the first one who failed to do something like that. That's why I have to have some idea about, for me as an ICT engineer, it's too easy for me to do such a job. You know,
wait and see.
I need some background for food and nutrition, something like that.
If you really wanted to write a proposal, yes. But our exercise is not writing the proposal. Our exercise is trying to understand the context. And as I said, many people just read it and say, yeah, this is fine. I mean, I'm an expert. I understand. Yes. So fine. This is my area. Close the work program and start writing. And in the end, what happens? The evaluator said, well, did you address this point? Did you address that point? We can't see it. It's not addressed in the proposal. It's a which point? You read it again maybe afterwards when you get the report. Say, yeah, they're right. There was this point. I haven't seen it really. I thought everything is covered. And you will find out, if you don't do this analysis, you will end up exactly there. You will cover maybe the general scope, but there are tricky bits in here, what you should also cover. If you forget that, you lost your proposal. And this exercise is just to show you that if it's ICT or whatsoever, the principle of analyzing is always the same. And if you don't do it, there's a high risk for you to fail. You may write an excellent proposal, everybody says, very nicely written, everything is there. However, the problem is, you did not really address all the items in the scope. And of course, again here, we have expected impact. Did you cover all that? Again, this may provide you with some more information to understand the scope. If you leave something out here, you lose because of that, no matter how well written the proposal is. But this is what the Commission expects. So, do we have the copies? So, let's have a slightly early coffee break, get the copies of the papers, and then after the coffee break, you have about 15 minutes or 20 minutes, you are flexible, to go through it. And then we'll discuss. Then some of you, not all, will tell us where do you think the important bits are. Thank you. After lunch. And the CV is not only a CV for applying for a job, you need the CV, or I call it profile, which is more general, for finding a partner. Without that, you will never find a partner. So let's have a lunch and then come back after lunch. Thank you.